G'day bike riders, welcome back to the Bike Route Buddy YouTube channel, where we review bicycle infrastructure from Geelong and further afield. In this week's video, I managed to steal my own bike from secure bike parking in under 20 seconds without an angle grinder or cutting the lock. This week we are looking at the bike parking in and around Geelong, how much there is, what they look like and how secure the racks are. There have been many reports of bike thefts in and around Geelong in recent months. All you have to do is look on social media on the community pages and there are regularly posts from people reporting their bikes stolen. Bike crime goes largely unsolved in most jurisdictions, including Victoria, so the only way to get your bike back is to prevent your bike from being stolen in the first place. According to Bicycle Network, reported bike thefts in Victoria increased from 4,000 per year in 2011 to 7,000 per year in 2020, and only around 9% of these are ever solved by police. When you're out on your bike, you need a good lock and something good to lock it to. Let's have a look at the racks, as there are a reasonable number of bike racks placed around central Geelong, and there is an online map provided by the City of Greater Geelong showing where and what type of facility it is. There are a number of different types of bike racks used. According to the map, there are the spiral, street sign clip-on, P-type, hoop and coat hanger. The map is reasonable, but I know of quite a number of new locations that have not been added onto this map, and many of these racks were completed more than a year ago. There are some missing from the map at Cardinia Park behind the cricket training facility and others at the South Geelong train station. There are more racks at the Marshall train station that are not on the map, and although I haven't checked, I would assume there are some at Warn Ponds train station that was completed a few years ago, and those also aren't on the map. Let's have a look at the actual racks. We'll start with the spiral racks. There are some good ones on Yarra Street in central Geelong, out the front of the shopping centre. These look pretty secure, and there seems to be no way of removing these or getting a locked bike off these racks without cutting the lock or cutting the rack. Though with one cut of the rack, you could remove all the bikes by sliding the locks along. This spot, however, is a prime location for bike thieves, and is the place where my wife's bike was stolen just before Christmas in 2024. The lock on her bike was cut at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's been no sign of the bike since, and is one of the 91% of stolen bikes that are never recovered. The second type of what the map calls street sign clip-on. I think this is the type they mean, although this one isn't clipped onto a street sign. There is another one listed just around the corner on Ryra Street that is actually clipped onto a street sign. There are only about 5 of these on the map for all of Geelong. However, I know there is at least one more in Newtown that doesn't get a mention. I always see dogs tied to this one, and I actually thought it was a dog rack and never thought it was a bike rack. These look reasonably secure, though I think with the right Allen key or Torx tool, you would be able to remove the top off the pole and haul that part of the rack away with the bike still attached. There are a few of these P-type racks. The count on the map is 18 locations. However, at many of these locations there are multiple racks. The construction of these seem to be a large steel post in the ground, and then a P-rack just slides inside the post. The P-rack is then secured by a wedge, jamming it in to prevent it being removed. Unfortunately, there are a few of these around where the wedge has been removed or has somehow fallen out. I think it would be pretty easy to remove the wedge with a lever or a hammer, and then just lift the bike rack out of the ground. I guess if someone did remove the rack from the ground, they would have to carry the rack away with the bike, which is exactly what we did when we found 2 that could easily be lifted out in the 6 or 7 locations we checked. If you only put your lock around the base of this rack, it's pretty easy to lift the rack out and remove the lock from the rack. I guess some good advice is to always put your lock through the frame and a wheel, so that if someone is able to get the rack out, they can't just ride it away, they would have to carry it. Coat hangers are the next ones. There are a handful of these. These are only bolted to the ground, but they are pretty big, so I guess as long as you put your lock through the coat hanger part, no one is going to be able to take this rack with your bike still attached. If you just lock your bike up at the end part though, I guess someone could undo the bolts and slide the lock off the end. The most common type is the hoop type, with these being installed at 126 locations according to the map. We know, however, that there are many more that are not on the map. We've found that these are secured to the ground in a number of different ways. Some look like they are concreted in or secured below the surface and would be hard to tamper with. Some use dynabolts with quite large bolts that could theoretically be removed, but I found that they were pretty tight. Some, including these brand new ones at the secure parketeer cages at South Geelong train station, are not that secure and can easily be removed with a 13mm spanner. This one is inside a secure cage that you need a card to access, so if you're able to pay the deposit for the card, you now have access to all these bikes in the cage that are locked to these removable racks. I'm not sure if someone's bike has been stolen off this rack or not, but it looks like it was pretty easy to remove. I looked at a few more of the racks outside the brand new South Geelong train station. With a slight push of a spanner, and then using a battery drill with a socket, I was able to remove the lock off the rack in 12 seconds. In this example, I'm just using a cable lock, which many people use, so I can stretch it below the removed base. If you were using a D-lock, you would probably need to remove both ends to unthread the D-lock. In that case, the time might blow out to a whopping 24 seconds. We locked and removed the bike from here about 4 times filming this. There is a security camera facing us, and we looked pretty suspicious, but we didn't get approached by anyone. According to Austroad's Bicycle Parking Facilities, Guidelines for Design and Installation 2016, systems that are assembled, as opposed to welded, can become loose or even fall apart through prolonged usage, and need to have locking and anti-theft fixing methods incorporated. I also looked at the Australian Standard for Bike Racks AS 2980.3, and it seems that bolt down is an acceptable installation method. However, I couldn't find any reference to any anti-tamper systems. Many of the suppliers of the bike racks provide tamper-proof screws with the supply of the surface-mounted bike racks. Back to the new hoops at South Geelong train station, to quote from Victoria's Big Build website, over $1 billion is being invested to deliver better and more frequent services for the communities between South Geelong and Warren Ponds. This includes station upgrades at Marshall and South Geelong to improve station accessibility and amenity for passengers. $1 billion spent, and Victoria's Big Build couldn't put tamper-proof attachments onto the bike racks. We have already had one known reported bike theft from the Marshall train station on one of the hoop racks, and we've already seen some racks being removed from the Parketeer secure bike parking at South Geelong. So if you are choosing to leave your car at home and ride to a destination, observe very carefully where you lock your bike up, and make sure you put your lock through the frame and a wheel, because it could be gone in 12 seconds, even if you have a really secure lock. Once it's gone, it's 91% likely to not be coming back. Once again, thanks for watching. Click on the subscribe button and give this video a like. I'm the Bike Route Buddy, and maybe I'll see you locking your bike up to a rack that is secured by more than two 13mm nuts at each end.